Life before Liam was simple. I was Miranda Spencer, a marketing assistant, and my world was all about coffee runs and deadlines. Then I met Michael, a department head at a tech firm. He was all charisma and confidence, the kind of guy who owned every room he walked into. We hit it off, got married, and before we knew it, Liam was on his way. But childbirth wasn't kind to me. It left me a shell of my former self, struggling to heal while caring for a newborn. Michael's support, once my rock, started to crack under the pressure. I was in the living room, trying to soothe Liam, when Michael walked in, his face drawn with fatigue. "Another rough night, huh?" I tried to keep my voice light. He barely glanced at Liam before dropping his briefcase. Yeah, thanks to him, I barely slept a wink. I bit my lip, feeling a sting at his words. "He's just a baby, Michael. He's not doing it on purpose." Michael sighed, rubbing his temples. I know. It's just, everything's a mess. The house, our schedules. I'm tired, Miranda. I wanted to say I was tired too, more than he could imagine, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just nodded, feeling the weight of his disappointment. My mom, and, breezed in then, her presence a welcome relief. "I'll take Liam for a bit. You two should talk." Michael's mood shifted slightly at her arrival. "Thanks, Anne. We appreciate it." Once Liam was in my mom's arms, Michael turned to me. "Miranda, we need to figure something out. I can't keep going like this." I felt a lump in my throat. "What do you want me to do, Michael? I'm trying my best here." "It's not enough." His voice rose, frustration evident. "Look at this place. And when was the last time we, I felt a flash of anger. "I'm still healing, Michael. What do you expect?" "I don't know, Miranda, but this isn't working. We need a break from this." His words hit me like a punch. A break? What does that even mean? Michael ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated. "I don't know, okay? I just need some space to think." I stood there, stunned, as he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "Out. I need air." And with that, he was gone. I sank onto the couch, feeling alone and overwhelmed. My mom came over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "He's just stressed, honey. It'll get better." But as I listened to Liam's soft coos in the next room, I wasn't so sure. Michael's words echoed in my mind, a harsh reminder of how much had changed. And I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The next few days felt like walking on eggshells. Michael's mood swings were more unpredictable than ever, and I was exhausted, trying to keep everything together. Liam's health took a nosedive. He was fussy, always crying, and I felt clueless about what to do. It was another sleepless night. Liam had been crying for hours, and nothing I did seemed to help. Michael stormed into the nursery, his face red with frustration. "What's going on, Miranda? Why can't you make him stop?" he snapped. I was on the verge of tears, rocking Liam in my arms. "I'm trying, Michael. He might be sick or something." "Sick? Great, just what we need," he muttered, running his hands through his hair. "I can't deal with this right now. I've got an important meeting tomorrow." I felt a surge of anger. "Well, I'm sorry our sick child is such an inconvenience to you." Michael glared at me. "You know what, Miranda? I need a break from this chaos. I'm going on a business trip for a couple of weeks." I stared at him, incredulous. "A business trip? Now? With Liam like this?" He shrugged, his expression cold. "I don't have a choice. Work needs me." I felt my heart sink. "So, what? I'm just supposed to handle everything alone?" Michael didn't answer. He just turned and left the room, leaving me standing there, holding our crying son, feeling more alone than ever. The next day, Michael was packing his suitcase when I confronted him. "How can you just leave us like this, Michael?" He zipped up his suitcase with a sigh. "Miranda, I told you, it's work. It's not like I want to go. I couldn't hold back my frustration. It sure doesn't seem like it. You can't wait to get away from us. He looked at me, his eyes hard. Maybe I do need a break, Miranda. Maybe we both do. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. I can't believe you're doing this. Michael picked up his suitcase, his face set. I'll call you when I get there. And with that, he walked out the door, leaving me in a house that suddenly felt too big and too empty. After he left, I called his boss, hoping to understand why this trip was so urgent. I dialed the number, my hands shaking. Hi, this is Miranda, Michael's wife. I was just wondering about the business trip he's on. The voice on the other end was confused. Business trip? Miranda, Michael took a leave of absence. He's not on a company trip. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. A leave? Are you sure? Yes, he requested it 2 weeks ago. Said it was personal. I hung up, my mind racing. Michael lied. He wasn't on a business trip. He just left because he wanted to. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I sat there, numb, wondering what else he was lying about. That night, as I tried to comfort Liam, I knew things between Michael and me had reached a breaking point. I just didn't know how to fix it or if it was even possible anymore. For 2 days, I was a wreck, trying to piece together the shards of what was happening. Liam's cries were the only sound breaking the deafening silence in the house. Then, out of the blue, Michael came home. He looked relaxed, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I was feeding Liam when he walked in. The sight of him ignited something fierce in me. I placed Liam in his crib and faced Michael, my voice shaking with anger. What the hell, Michael? Where were you? Michael, taken aback, dropped his bag. I was on my trip, Miranda. Why? I glared at him. Cut the crap. I called your boss. There was no business trip. He faltered for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. Okay, you got me. I needed a break, Miranda. I couldn't stand being here anymore. His words were like a slap. You couldn't stand being with your own family? He scoffed. It's not just that. It's everything, Miranda. The constant crying, the mess, you. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Me? What about me? Michael's face hardened. You're not the woman I married, Miranda. You've changed. You're always tired, always complaining. And let's not even talk about how you look. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tears blurred my vision. So, this is my fault? I just had your child, Michael. He shrugged, his voice cold. I didn't sign up for this. I wanted a wife, not a burden. I was shaking now, my whole body trembling with a mix of rage and hurt. So, what now? You're just going to run away from your responsibilities? Michael's expression shifted, a smug smile playing on his lips. Actually, I met someone. She's everything you're not. I was with her these past days. I gasped, feeling like I'd been punched. You're cheating on me? He nodded, almost proudly. Yeah, I am. And you know what? I'm happier with her. The room was spinning. I struggled to find words. You're a coward, Michael. A selfish, heartless coward. He just shrugged. Call it what you want. I'm done here. I want a divorce. I stared at him, a mixture of disbelief and disgust washing over me. Fine. Get out. I don't want to see your face again. He smirked, picking up his bag. Gladly. This was a mistake from the start. As he walked out, a sense of emptiness engulfed me. But there was also a flicker of relief. The truth was out, and as painful as it was better than living a lie. I walked over to Liam, my little beacon of hope, and held him close, knowing that no matter what, I'd do everything to protect him from the storm that just left our lives. A week had passed since Michael walked out. I was slowly finding my feet, leaning on my mom for support and trying to be strong for Liam. The divorce papers sat on the kitchen table, a stark reminder of the new reality. I had just put Liam down for a nap when I heard the front door open. It was Michael, looking disheveled, his eyes frantic. "What are you doing here, Michael?" I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. He paced the room, his hands trembling. "Miranda, I need to talk to you. It's important." I crossed my arms, skeptical. "What could you possibly have to say to me now?" He took a deep breath, his eyes not meeting mine. "I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I need you to forgive me." I laughed, bitter and incredulous. "Forgive you? For what? For abandoning your family or for rubbing your affair in my face?" Michael winced, but he continued. "I know I messed up, but I need your help, Miranda." I raised an eyebrow. "My help? Why would I help you?" He started to pace again, his voice desperate. "It's my grandmother, Miranda. She's making her will, and I might lose everything if she finds out about us." I shook my head, disgusted. "So, you want me to lie for you? After everything?" He stopped, looking at me directly for the first time. "Yes, I'm asking you to pretend we're still together. Just for a little while." I scoffed. "Why on earth would I do that, Michael?" He swallowed hard. "I'll pay you $30,000. I stared at him, stunned. "You're bribing me? To play happy families so you can get your inheritance?" He nodded, his eyes pleading. "Please, Miranda. I'm begging you." I thought about Liam, about the life I wanted to give him. "And what about Liam? What does he get out of this charade?" Michael hesitated. I haven't thought that far." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. "Fine. I'll do it. But on one condition." Michael's eyes lit up. "Anything, Miranda? What is it?" I leaned in, my voice firm. "This isn't for you. It's for Liam. That money goes into a trust for him. And you stay away from us after this is over." He nodded eagerly. "Deal. Thank you, Miranda. You won't regret this." I watched him leave, the signed divorce papers still on the table. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I was doing this for Liam, not for the man who had shattered our lives. As I picked up the papers and folded them neatly, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. Michael thought he was using me, but in the end, I was the one in control. The day of the gathering at Michael's grandmother's house arrived. I felt like an actor about to perform in the most twisted play ever written. Michael picked me up, trying to make small talk, but I was having none of it. The grand old house loomed as we pulled up. Michael's hand found mine, a forced gesture of unity. I pulled away as soon as we were in view of the family. "Miranda, please, just for today," he hissed under his breath. I shot him a look that could freeze lava. "I'm here for Liam, not for you. Remember that." The family greeted us with smiles and hugs. Michael's mother, Diane, came over, her eyes brimming with concern. "Miranda, dear, we've missed you. How's little Liam?" I forced a smile. "He's good, Diane, thank you. Growing fast." Michael's father, Richard, clapped him on the back. "Son, good to see you. Work keeping you busy?" Michael nodded, the picture of the devoted family man. "Always, Dad, but I make time for what's important." The hypocrisy of his words made my stomach turn. We were ushered into the living room where Michael's grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Hargrave, sat regally in her armchair. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "Miranda, my dear," she greeted me, her voice strong despite her age. "It's so good to see you." I approached her, respectful yet distant. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Hargrave." She nodded, then turned to Michael. "And you, Michael, how have you been?" He perched on the edge of a chair, all eagerness. Great, Grandma. Really great. She hummed, her gaze piercing. Is that so? And your marriage? How is that faring? Michael reached for my hand again, squeezing it. Better than ever, Grandma. I felt like I was going to be sick. The afternoon dragged on with idle chit-chat and family updates. I played my part, smiling when needed, laughing at the right moments, but inside, I was screaming. Finally, Mrs. Hargrave cleared her throat. I suppose you're all wondering why I've called you here today. The room fell silent. Everyone's attention was on the matriarch of the Hargrave family. She continued, her voice firm. It's about my will. I've made some changes, and I wanted you all to be the first to know. Michael squeezed my hand tighter, his anticipation palpable. I could only think about getting through this charade and getting out. The sooner this was over, the better. As Mrs. Hargrave began to speak about her will, a tense silence enveloped the room. I felt Michael's grip tighten on my hand, his anxiety palpable. I, on the other hand, was bracing myself for the performance of my life. Mrs. Hargrave, with her lawyer by her side, began methodically outlining her decisions. To my daughter, Diane, I leave the summer house in Maine. The details blurred as I zoned out, my mind racing with thoughts of Liam and the future. It wasn't until Mrs. Hargrave's tone changed that I snapped back to attention. And now, to my grandson Michael, she began, her voice firmer. The room seemed to hold its breath. Michael leaned forward, a forced smile plastered on his face. Yes, Grandma? Mrs. Hargrave looked him straight in the eye. Michael, I've always hoped you'd grow into a man of integrity, like your father. But it seems I was mistaken. Michael's smile faltered. Grandma, what do you mean? She continued, unflinching. I mean that a man who betrays his family, who lies and cheats, does not deserve my legacy. You could hear a pin drop. Michael's face drained of color. Grandma, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Mrs. Hargrave's gaze turned to me. Miranda, my dear, would you like to explain? I felt every eye in the room on me. Taking a deep breath, I stood up, releasing Michael's hand. Michael has been unfaithful. He left me and Liam to be with another woman. Gasps filled the room. Michael's parents turned to him, shock written all over their faces. Michael, is this true? Diane's voice was barely a whisper. Michael stumbled over his words. Mom, it's not like that. Miranda, why are you saying this? I looked at him, my voice steady. Because it's the truth. You wanted me here to pretend everything was fine. For your inheritance. Mrs. Hargrave nodded solemnly. I had my suspicions, but now it's clear. Michael, you will receive nothing from my estate. Michael was on his feet now, desperation in his eyes. Grandma, please. I need that money. Mrs. Hargrave shook her head. Money that I fear would only fuel your selfish desires. No, Michael. You've made your bed. Now you must lie in it. Michael looked around the room, as if searching for an ally, but found none. His gaze finally settled on me, a mix of anger and disbelief. You did this, he accused. You ruined everything. I met his gaze, unflinching. No, Michael. You did that all by yourself. The room was thick with tension, the family's shock at the revelation palpable. Mrs. Hargrave's decision was final, and with it, Michael's facade crumbled. The gathering, meant to be a solemn family affair, had turned into a dramatic unveiling of truths, leaving Michael isolated and defeated. The aftermath of Mrs. Hargrave's announcement was chaotic. Michael's parents, Diane and Richard, were the first to react. Diane approached Michael, her eyes filled with disbelief and hurt. Michael, how could you do this to your family? She asked, her voice quivering with emotion. Michael, still reeling from the shock, struggled to respond. Mom, I just made a mistake. A mistake? Richard interjected, his tone harsh. You call destroying your family a mistake? I stood there, feeling like an outsider in their family drama. Mrs. Hargrave, however, remained composed. This is why I made my decision. A person's true character is revealed not in their successes, but in their failures. Michael turned to me, a mix of anger and desperation in his eyes. Miranda, tell them it's not like that. I looked at him, feeling a strange sense of detachment. What do you want me to say, Michael? That you didn't leave? That you didn't have an affair? His face contorted with frustration. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me brought down like this. I shook my head. No, Michael, I'm not. This is just the truth coming to light. Mrs. Hargrave then addressed me directly. Miranda, I want to apologize for my grandson's behavior. And I want to make things right. I was taken aback. Mrs. Hargrave, you don't owe me anything. She nodded firmly. But I do. I'm reallocating what I had set aside for Michael to Liam. I'll set up a trust for his future. I was speechless, overwhelmed by her generosity. Thank you, Mrs. Hargrave. That means a lot. Michael looked defeated, his earlier bravado gone. He turned to his grandmother, his voice barely a whisper. Grandma, I'm sorry. Mrs. Hargrave looked at him, her expression softening slightly. Michael, I hope one day you'll understand why I did this. It's not just about the money. It's about learning from your mistakes. The room slowly emptied, leaving Michael and me alone. He looked at me, his eyes searching for something, forgiveness, understanding, pity. I didn't know. Miranda, I don't know what to say. I collected my things, ready to leave. There's nothing to say, Michael. Just take care of yourself. As I walked out of that house, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a resolution. A new beginning for Liam and me, and maybe even for Michael, in his own way. The day I finalized my divorce from Michael felt like a long-awaited exhale. It was done, the chapter of my life with him was officially closed. I was at home, organizing Liam's toys, when I heard a knock at the door. Opening it, I found Michael, his eyes red and puffy. Miranda, please, I need to talk to you, he pleaded, his voice shaky. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. What is it, Michael? He sank to his knees, a picture of desperation. I'm begging you, Miranda. Please forgive me. Take me back. I've made a terrible mistake. I looked down at him, feeling a mix of pity and resolve. Michael, it's over. We're divorced. You made your choice, and I've made mine. It's time for both of us to move on. He grabbed at my hand, his tears flowing freely. But I have nothing left. She left me, said I was a lost cause. You and Liam are all I have. I gently pulled my hand away. Michael, you can't just walk back into our lives because she left you. What about when you left us? He had no answer, just sat there on his knees, looking lost. I hope you find what you're looking for, Michael, but it won't be with me, I said firmly, my heart aching for the man he once was and for the family we could have been. Returning inside, I looked at Liam, playing contentedly. He was my world now, and I was determined to give him the best life possible, filled with love and stability. That night, after putting Liam to bed, I sat on the couch, a sense of peace settling over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was ours to travel, and I was ready for whatever came next. Michael's chapter in our lives was over, but ours was just beginning, full of hope and new possibilities.